What if the real story behind the Middle East tensions isn't just about missiles, borders, or military strategy? What if the deeper battle is about money and the global financial system? For decades, the global oil market has largely been traded in U.S. dollars, a system often referred to as the petrodollar. But as tensions rise between Iran and Israel, and global powers like the United States and China become more involved in Middle Eastern geopolitics, some analysts are asking a big question. Could the Iran-Israel conflict affect the global oil system and potentially reshape U.S. influence? Let's break down the strategy, the economics, and the geopolitics behind what some call the petrodollar game theory. In the modern world, energy is one of the most important drivers of global politics. Oil powers transportation, industry, and much of the global economy. Because of this, countries that control energy resources, or the systems used to trade them, often hold enormous geopolitical influence. For decades, one financial system has played a major role in global oil trade: the petrodollar. Understanding how this system works helps explain why events in the Middle East often attract worldwide attention. But to understand today's situation, we first need to explore how this system emerged. The term petrodollar refers to the practice of pricing and trading oil primarily in U.S. dollars. This system developed during the 1970s when oil-producing countries began conducting most international oil transactions in dollars. Because energy markets are so large, this arrangement created consistent global demand for U.S. currency. That demand strengthened the international role of the dollar and reinforced the financial influence of the United States. Countries that import oil often need access to dollars to complete energy purchases. As a result, global financial markets, energy trade, and currency systems became closely connected. However, global economic systems evolve over time, and in recent years, some countries have explored alternative ways of conducting trade. Iran plays an important role in this discussion because it is one of the world's major energy producers. Its geographic position also places it near critical shipping routes used for global oil transport. Tensions between Iran and Western powers have led to years of economic sanctions and financial restrictions. These sanctions have encouraged Iran to explore alternative economic partnerships and trading arrangements. At the same time, Iran maintains complex geopolitical relationships across the Middle East. Its rivalry with Israel, along with broader regional dynamics, often shapes international discussions about security and energy markets. But another factor adds even more complexity to the situation. Major global powers closely monitor developments in the Middle East because of the region's economic and strategic importance. For example, China has significantly expanded energy partnerships across the region. At the same time, Russia has maintained diplomatic and strategic relationships with several Middle Eastern governments. These connections do not necessarily indicate a unified strategy, but they highlight how multiple countries have interests in regional stability and energy markets. When multiple global powers operate in the same region, geopolitical dynamics become much more complex. Energy trade, security alliances, and economic cooperation often intersect in ways that influence global politics. To understand how these dynamics interact, analysts sometimes use a concept known as game theory. Game theory examines how different players make decisions when their outcomes depend on the choices of others. In international politics, countries often evaluate multiple strategic options based on the likely reactions of other nations. For example, governments consider questions such as, how might other countries respond to economic pressure? How might alliances shift during regional tensions? Could economic strategies influence geopolitical outcomes? Using this framework, analysts sometimes explore how conflicts and economic systems interact. However, these scenarios remain theoretical tools rather than definitive predictions. Another question frequently raised by economists and geopolitical analysts is whether global energy trade might gradually diversify beyond traditional systems. Some countries have experimented with trading certain commodities, using different currencies or financial arrangements, but large global systems rarely change quickly. Energy markets involve complex networks of infrastructure, financial institutions, and long-standing contracts. Even when countries explore alternatives, transitions typically take many years. This means that while discussions about financial systems continue, the existing global energy structure remains highly influential. So why does the Iran-Israel tension attract such global interest? Because the Middle East sits at the intersection of several critical global systems: energy markets, trade routes, security alliances, international finance events. In this region often influence multiple geopolitical dynamics at the same time. That's why analysts closely monitor developments there, even when the immediate events appear regional. The relationship between energy markets, geopolitics, and global finance is incredibly complex. The concept of a petrodollar game highlights how economic systems and political decisions can interact in unexpected ways. Whether current tensions lead to long-term changes in global energy trade or simply reinforce existing systems remains uncertain. But understanding the economic and geopolitical forces behind these discussions helps us better interpret global events. Now, I want to hear your perspective. Do you think the global energy system will remain largely the same in the coming decades? Or could new economic partnerships gradually reshape how energy is traded around the world? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want more clear and in-depth analysis of global geopolitics and economic strategy, make sure to subscribe and stay tuned for our next update.